A little strange at first because I wanted to do what you did. My first degree is in radio TV journalism.
She had the voice of an angel, the grace of a queen, and the faith of a warrior. For decades, Yolanda Adams inspired millions with her music and message. But behind the awards and standing ovations, her life was unraveling in ways few ever knew. At 63, Yolanda Adams's daughter has finally broken her silence, and what she revealed adds new depth to one of gospel's most powerful and most painful stories. Yolanda Adams wasn't just a performer. She was a force, a beacon of hope, a voice that turned tears into strength. She stood tall in a world that often tried to push her down. But the heartbreak she carried didn't come from strangers. It came from the people she trusted most, people who should have protected her, but instead left scars that still haven't healed. This is the full truth about Yolanda Adams: the rise, the betrayal, the silencing, and the quiet battle to reclaim what was stolen. It all started in Houston, Texas, where Yolanda Yvette Adams was born on August 27, 1961. She was the oldest of 6 children, raised in a deeply religious home. From childhood, her voice was different. Not just beautiful, moving. She could bring an entire congregation to tears with just a single verse. But her true gift was in her spirit. She wasn't just born to sing. She was born to lead. In her early 20s, Yolanda made the bold decision to pursue gospel music professionally. Her 1987 debut album, Just As I Am, didn't hit the charts, but it turned heads. She didn't sound like anyone else in the gospel world. Her voice carried the strength of tradition, but with a sound that was new, fresh, revolutionary. By the late 1990s, Yolanda Adams wasn't just making music. She was making history. Her groundbreaking album, Mountain High, Valley Low, was released in 1999 and crossed over from gospel into mainstream R&B. This was unheard of at the time. Gospel artists stayed in church. They didn't get airplay on R&B stations. But Yolanda broke through. In 2002, she was invited to perform at the Super Bowl. That same year, she sang for President George W. Bush. Her influence stretched far beyond the pulpit. She had become a national figure, gospel's brightest star. But success came at a cost. Church leaders began whispering that she had gone too far. They said she had become too commercial, too polished, too secular. The very same people who once praised her now accused her of turning her back on the gospel message. Her music was labeled too worldly. Her faith questioned. The support system that raised her up began to fall apart. Still, she kept going. With grace, class, and relentless faith, Yolanda refused to shrink. But the next betrayal wouldn't come from church leaders. It would come from her own home. In 1997, Yolanda married former NFL quarterback Tim Crawford. On the outside, it looked like a power couple built on shared values. 2 public figures, both respected in their fields, both grounded in faith. To the world, it looked like a match made in heaven. But behind closed doors, Yolanda's life was unraveling. Tim Crawford, admired for his football career, had a hidden side. As Yolanda focused on her music, ministry, and motherhood, she placed her financial trust in her husband. She believed he was helping build their empire, managing their assets, and securing their future. Instead, according to court filings and close sources, he was quietly funneling money from their shared accounts into business ventures Yolanda had never agreed to. Ventures that would leave her in financial ruins. The emotional toll was heavy. Trust turned to confusion. Confusion turned to heartbreak. By 2004, The marriage was over. The divorce was finalized quietly. There were no interviews, no public accusations. Yolanda chose silence, but behind that silence was devastation. After the split, Yolanda faced a mountain of legal trouble. Creditors came knocking. She was hit with lawsuits tied to her ex-husband's investments. Debts she didn't create, but was legally responsible for. Shared accounts and co-signed loans meant the weight fell squarely on her shoulders. The gospel icon, who had once stood on global stages, now found herself struggling to keep her financial life afloat. Fans saw her smiling on stage, but behind that smile was pain, fear, isolation. She didn't break down in public. She didn't go on talk shows or magazines to tell her side. She did what she always did. She kept singing. She kept performing. But quietly, she was fighting to rebuild from nothing. And while she was doing that, the industry that once lifted her up began to shut her out. Yolanda Adams should have been at the peak of her career. She had won Grammy Awards, Dove Awards, and Stellar Awards. She had her own nationally syndicated radio show. She was gospel royalty. But suddenly, she wasn't being invited to perform. Her songs were disappearing from gospel stations. Producers stopped calling. Longtime collaborators walked away. Some networks allegedly pulled her from their lineups without explanation. Her albums no longer got the promotion they once did. The silence wasn't accidental, it was intentional. Yolanda wasn't being overlooked, she was being erased. The gospel industry, praised for its community and faith, was turning its back. Some insiders say it was because Yolanda had become too outspoken. Others said she was too Hollywood. But beneath it all was something darker: fear. Yolanda was no longer willing to be controlled. She demanded ownership of her masters. She demanded fair pay. She refused to be treated as a product. That made her dangerous. She was a businesswoman in an industry still dominated by men, a woman of faith who didn't need permission to speak. And for that, she was quietly pushed out. She was hit with more lawsuits, some from people claiming breach of contract, others trying to take control of her publishing rights. Yolanda fought back. She spent years in court trying to regain ownership of her own voice, literally. Some of her early contracts had locked her out of earnings from music she had written and recorded. She had no idea just how much she had signed away. But while she battled in court, another war was raging against her presence. Her appearances dwindled. Media mentions slowed. She wasn't being booked. She wasn't being acknowledged. Yolanda Adams, once everywhere, was now almost invisible. And yet, she never quit. She refused to beg for recognition. She didn't chase after the people who had turned their backs. Instead, she created a new path. She leaned into her independence. She took control of her brand, her name, and her story. She began using social media to stay connected with fans. She built her own platforms. She secured brand deals. She partnered with faith-based conferences, corporate sponsors, and organizations looking for authenticity. In 2016, she was honored with the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award by Barack Obama, a quiet but powerful reminder that her impact had never faded. It had only been ignored. 2 years later, in 2018, Yolanda Adams performed at Aretha Franklin's funeral. The world watched in awe as she sang "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." The performance was breathtaking, but more than that, it was a message. She never left. She had been there all along. That performance sparked something. Slowly, Yolanda returned to public life, on her terms. She appeared in gospel television specials. She acted in Kingdom Business, a drama about gospel industry manipulation, a story all too familiar to her. Her presence was no longer controlled by gatekeepers. She had reclaimed her spotlight. She used her platform to speak about faith, mental health, and the struggles Black women face in male-dominated spaces. She didn't speak out in anger. She didn't expose names. Her silence was strategic. Her comeback was intentional. But there are still questions Yolanda has never answered. Why hasn't she released a studio album in more than a decade? Why do some gospel networks and award shows continue to leave her out? Why do certain industry names avoid mentioning her at all? Some say the scars run too deep, that her silence hides wounds still healing, that even now, the damage done to her career and finances has yet to be fully addressed. She never wrote a tell-all book. She never aired her truth on talk shows. She never pointed fingers. And maybe that's where her power lies. She let her work and her resilience speak louder than any scandal. Her story remains one of gospel's most untold tragedies. She built the stage others now stand on. She opened the doors that many now walk through. Yet her contributions are rarely celebrated the way they should be. Not because she wasn't great, but because she refused to conform. She demanded respect. She refused to be used. And for that, she was pushed out. Quietly, deliberately. But she survived. And she did more than survive. She came back stronger. Today, Yolanda Adams may not be topping charts, but her influence is everywhere. In the sound of young gospel artists blending genres, in the message of women demanding control over their art, in the voices of those who refuse to be silenced. Her legacy is not just in her music. It's in her fight, her silence, her strength. She lost nearly everything: money, support, reputation, and still stood tall. And now, at 63, her daughter's voice joins hers, not in song, but in truth, sharing the pain, the betrayal, and the power of a woman who refused to be erased. She was never just a gospel singer. She was a trailblazer, a warrior, a survivor, and through it all, Yolanda Adams kept praising. Keep pushing. Keep believing. Her silence wasn't a weakness. It was wisdom. And her story? It's far from over.